we will be discussing the construction technology and how it would affect people negatively or positively.
Okay.
What do you think about that in general?
When you say construction technology, I think before you were talking about innovative construction technologies and potentially automated construction technologies. Was that correct? Robots.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important first to say that I think we've got to be trying new things. I think we've got to be pushing the boundaries, using the capabilities. We've got to be experimenting. That's the only way we're going to move forward. And I think inherent in that is we're going to make a lot of mistakes, and we're going to discover a lot of things we didn't intend to discover. I really support those people out there doing that research and considering automated building production, not just components, which we already use in a very widespread way, and also customized components, but that a building could be completely constructed without, literally, without the hands of people. So I respect that as an endeavor, but I also don't think it's ever going to have a prominent place in at least in the foreseeable future. And one of those is I don't think it's ethical, because if you look at the automotive industry, once you started to put chips inside of cars and they became more reliable, and some of these are great things, but then you also saw a dramatic drop in the jobs that were available for people. And if you were going to look at the building construction industry and look at how many people are employed and the skills that they have, and that's not to say that we couldn't educate and train construction workers in a different way. We certainly could, and that's inevitable. We have construction workers with skills today that they didn't have 20 years ago, or didn't have 200 years ago, or didn't have 500 years ago. That's an inevitable part of the process. But the prospect of making buildings without human construction workers would decimate the economy. I mean, where would these people go? What jobs would they get? And we already see the negative effects of this in terms of outsourcing human jobs from this country to other countries. So I think the consequences of automated building production, in order for it to be viable, we'd have to have other areas for people to work. Right? So I think that's going to kill it in the future. Now, there might be specialized buildings. I think if you were going to talk about making a colony on Mars, if you were going to talk about not only repair but perhaps the construction of space stations, I think there's, without question, that's going to be a really important place for that kind of automated technology, and it is architecture. But I believe, as exciting as it is that people that people are researching grow your own buildings and all these speculative things, I think it's fascinating from a theoretical standpoint. But I believe that 200 years from now, 99% of the buildings are still going to be made out of masonry, concrete, steel, and glass.
Yeah, with human.
Yeah, with human hands.
Yes.
With human hands.
So many people take this as an excuse for the innovation of technology in the construction industry, is that they want to make it safer for construction workers, because in 2008 the fatality rate was the highest in all industries in the United States. So they said that this will make it easier for them, will make it safer, more precise, more accurate. What do you think about that?
Well, I think in order to, statistics, I like the statement about statistics are like a drunk man and a light post. You're either using the lamp post for illumination or for support. And so I think data is really important, but we've got to be complete and clear about what the data includes and what it doesn't. So if we were going to say that 2008, I mean that based on your research says that we had more construction fatalities, and that automated construction processes are the solution. I think we have to look at what are the causes of those increased construction worker fatalities, and would there be other solutions? right? It's easy to say that that's bad. We should take people out of the equation in order to make them safer, and we should use robots. There is a whole world of information and factors that aren't considered in there. Like, what are the safety protocols? Where do the fatalities occur, specifically in the construction process? What type of projects, you know?
They actually made a study about this, and they wanted to add more technology in the education aspect of construction in general. So they just use more simulations for the construction site to show how hazardous it is.
Yes.
So that now this in terms of education, they also, even if technology, robots are taking over the construction site, there still has to be someone controlling that robot, and he has to be trained. So education is in all solutions. Whatever the solution is, education is going to be there. So about this is another topic. Other people said that architects and designers should be limited and consider the safety while they design. Because when I have robots, some construction workers actually died and because of the design concept of the project. Should we be limited as architects?
Well, there are changes going on in the contractual relationships between all the various entities involved in delivering a project. And if we think about the most ancient model, there was simply the owner and the master builder. This is how the Gothic cathedrals were built. I'm sure this is how the pyramids were built. And if we look at the model that's been prevailing largely through the 20th century, even up till today, is that you have the owner, you have the architect, and you have the contractor, and how these people they don't have a contract between everybody. They have an architect has a contract with the owner, and the owner has a contract with the contractor, and then there's the general conditions, right? And that's not very efficient. And now we've got design build models, we've got all these different contractual relationships about who's responsible for what. Because when we had owner, architect, contractor model, right, in that case, typically the architect did not have purview over means and methods of construction. Now that doesn't mean they don't think about how a building is constructed, and because they have to, but the actual purview, the responsibility, the architect does not typically tell the contractor how to do it in that, right? That is, you can tell them what needs to be made, but you can't tell them how to make it. So that, in that model, that really wasn't even our purview to begin with, right? That doesn't mean that we shouldn't be involved in that. But today, there are a lot of different emerging models out there, and one of them, the most promising, is the integrated project delivery model. And that's where you have multi-party agreements between everybody, not only the architect, the owner, and the contractor, but the subcontractors and the HVAC consultants and the structural engineers. Everybody has an agreement with one another, and there's a shared responsibility. This is social. This is, you're able to deliver buildings faster, safer, for less money, that perform better, all because of the contractual relationships. And it's very difficult because it's about human trust. And in a case like that, architects, everybody gets to talk about their interests, what they want from it, and there's mutual respect. And so I think when you have your subcontractors in the room, when you're talking about design and fabrication, they get to raise the issue of safety. And whether it's the architect's purview or not, that is going to be a part of the conversation. So I think that problem can be literally taken away. Right? So I don't know that architects don't typically have purview over means and methods of construction, but it depends on the model, and the better the model gets, the less that's going to be a problem. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay.
It does. Oh, okay. What about 3D printing? In China, they 3D printed 10 houses in a day. How would that affect the economy?
You're only asking about the economy, because when we actually look at the work and we say, well, there's environmental performance, is it actually more, this is again the statistics interpretation. How much material was used, how much energy was used to put the material in that configuration. It's still kind of like a tilt-up slab configuration, so again, I think it's really important that they're experimenting with this. I think that's absolutely important. It's fascinating. but people tend to want to celebrate a technology before it's really been determined that it's not only viable, but it's better. And I think the enthusiasm is great, but again, there are going to be selective statistics that are used to promote that. I think ultimately the judgment is it going to be better? And we'd have to say, well, is it better from an environmental standpoint? Is environmental more beneficial from an economic standpoint, from a social standpoint, from all of these things? And that's very complex. So I'm excited that they're doing that. I'm suspicious of how one might say that it's more environmental, sustainable, or economic, because I don't think it's yet been tested. And I'm excited about the prospect, but I also question that it's ultimately going to pass muster on all of those levels.
So, if we use technology or like robots in construction, we will be able to use better material, heavier material, make it more. The structure will be stronger if we don't use. There's no interactions with human. But would that be a negative thing or a positive thing? Because technology in all aspects, not only in the construction technology, we are still, it's a controversy. Are they taking our jobs or are they providing jobs for us?
Yeah.
How would that work in the construction industry?
Well, already there's a lot of, say, automation. You know, I mean, in our own material labs here, I mean, it's been, for 11 years, we've had 3D printers and CNC router tables, and you know, it's like what the computer has done for the architectural design process. It should have given us more time. It should have given us a better product. In many ways, it can do some of those things. But it also means now that because of the automation, we have to work more quickly. We can work more quickly, but the services are also, they didn't increase in value. Basically, everything could be done faster, so you know, everything got cheaper. I think it makes things faster. I don't know that it necessarily makes things better, but now we're getting at a point in terms of computers that we're getting into simulations, and we're able to, through very quick processes, you know, simulate environmental, solar, structural performances, and that's an incredible tool. That's giving us things that we never had before. And in terms of the fabrication, we're able to, I think, make things that we couldn't make before. Like at one point, and you may have heard this already in school, is you're familiar with the architect Louis Kahn?
Yes.
Lou Kahn? And the story that came from a much better lecture, but the one that always is talked about in architecture schools, is his Socratic dialogue with the brick, where he goes to the brick and says, "Brick, what do you want to be?" And the brick says, "I want to be an arch." And that's all about looking at a material and not just doing what it's in its nature, but it's about exploiting its nature, getting it to do something more. But with digital fabrication, we no longer have to look at a brick and say, "Brick, what do you want to be?" We actually can say, "Thing, you're going to be whatever I want you to be." And I can optimize you with digital software. I can make it require no more material than it needs to be. I mean, if I put a tensile connector and there are 3 cables that come in it, I can have a computer program optimize it